Hello and welcome to this episode of the Hombre Cave, where we're turning the Hombre Cave into a winery. So we're going to show you here how we're making homemade wine. So let's get to it. So it all starts in the fields, just like with tequila. It's the agave fields. Here it's the vineyards. So today we're picking ripe grapes to use. These are Zinfandel grapes. We're going to pick these and we're going to make wine out of it. So let's check it out. All right, so here we are dumping the ripe grapes into a destemmer crusher, where it'll take the stems off the grapes and then crush the grapes so we get the juices out, and it exposes more of the skin so we can get some of the tannins. Here you can see the skins coming out with the juice dripping down. If you notice, the juice here is yellow to start. It's yellow for red wines when you first crush it, and the longer that this wine sits on the skins and is able to draw some of the color and tannins out, the more color it will add to the red wine. So all red wines, when they originally do a crush like this, the juice is actually yellow. And that's how they get like a white Zinfandel. It's basically just the crushed juice with little exposure to the grape skins. All right, so we're going to take the grapes now. We're going to dump them into this fermenter. It's been sulfated already, so this will keep the sulfates keep them from fermenting from wild yeast. So we'll dump all these into this big 30-gallon fermenter. Kate will come over and film this being dumped into the fermenter so they can see it. Some green grapes in here. We want to stir this up, make sure it's all mixed into the sulfite solution that's in the buckets. Keep them from fermenting. All right, time to dump more in. Okay, so one of the things you want to do is you always want to check the bricks, which is the sugar content. And they do this with tequila as well. They'll check the bricks of the agave when they're harvesting them to know what kind of alcohol content it is. So we're going to check the bricks. You can see the must here just to see what it looks like. You can zoom in here and look. You see it's got all the grapes and stuff, and it's going to start out being yellow, but as it draws more tannins and stuff out of the skin and the seeds, it'll turn red because this is a red grape. So we'll go ahead and use this refractometer. We'll put a little bit of this on top of there, and then we click start, and it tells us 24.7. So this is going to be like 14.5% alcohol. So this would be a really nice wine. So that's the brick. Now we're going to let it sit because it's been sulfited. So then we're going to pitch yeast tomorrow. So tomorrow we'll do a video where I show you guys yeast propagation, and we'll show what we're doing with the yeast. All right, so we're on day 2. The must has been sitting overnight in the garage, and it's been with some enzymes and stuff, so all the skins are getting the tannins and stuff out. So now we're going to work on getting the yeast ready. So I've got a yeast starter going here. This is just distilled water with some yeast nutrient and the yeast that we're pitching. The yeast that we're pitching for this particular batch is really good for Zinfandel. It's called Asmanhausen wine yeast. So we pitched a dry yeast into this to rehydrate it. So it's distilled water with some yeast nutrient. We're going to let this go for about half an hour, get it rehydrated, and then we'll pitch it into the must, and it should start working. The must right now is also at a perfect temperature of 74 degrees for fermentation with this yeast. So things should be really good. So we'll come back in a little bit, and we'll show you the pitching the yeast into the must. Okay, so the yeast starter is ready. You can see it's kind of frothy and stuff, so all the yeast is rehydrated. There's some yeast nutrient in here too, so it's going to be really healthy and kick off a good fermentation for us. So we're going to go ahead and add it to the must now. So we'll put this aside here. And then we'll go ahead and lift the top. And that we're going to do is, you can see the beautiful must, all the enzymes been working, so it's turning nice and red now when it was yellow at first. So we're going to go ahead and just pour this right around the top of the must. So all this yeast can get to these beautiful sugars that are in here and start turning them into alcohol and CO2. We'll come back and check on it once it starts fermenting. All right, so here we are looking at the fermentation, and you can see all these grapes have been pushed up. What happens is, as the yeast is fermenting the must below it, it creates carbon dioxide gas, and the gas gets trapped underneath the grapes, the grape skins, and pushes them up to the top of the surface. So what we want to do is we want to take a press and push them down, or punch and press them down. So here I've got a press, a punch, a cap punch down tool that has been sanitized. We always want to sanitize anything that we stick into the wort so we don't introduce any bacteria or yeast that we don't want into it. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and push this. You can see this dried cap here. We're going to push this down into the must. It's going to start foaming there because that's from the fermentation below. We're releasing all that carbon dioxide gas. And we're going to push this down like this and get these grape skins back into the must so we can get more of the wonderful flavors and colors out of the grape. So we're going to push them down. I'm going to do this all over the cap here. We do this probably about 2 or 3 times a day. Right now, since fermentation is going pretty strong, we'll probably do it 3 to 4 times a day, just to keep oxygen in the must and to keep the grape skins in the must as well, so you can extract all the tannins and stuff that we want out of the grape skins, the color and tannins. We'll get some of these grape skins off there too. And we'll punch this down. Color on it looks great. We're getting all the great color out of the skins. All the tannins are coming out. We're getting more sugars out too, because the yeast will get into the skins and ferment the sugar as well. We'll do this, 3-4 times a day now. And then as it progresses through fermentation, we can reduce the amount because it won't pop up as often. Right now we have a really strong fermentation going. The yeast is happy. We have nutrients in there for the yeast. And when the sugar gets down to, the brix gets down to about 1/3 of what it started at, or we reduce it by 1/3. So this started at 24 brix. So once it gets down to about 16 brix, we'll put some more nutrients in there to help the yeast, because we want a really good fermentation. We want to get the sugars fermented so we have a nice flavorful wine that's not too sweet. And there you go. The cap has been punched down. So then we're going to put the top back on it again. And then we'll check on it in a few hours and push the cap back down again. All right, so the batch is now, a few days in, and we're going to keep pushing the cap down, letting fermentation happen for a little over a week. And then we'll work on transferring stuff over. So make sure you watch for the second edition, where we'll continue showing the processes of making this Zinfandel wine. Salud.